Zoroastrianism, Symbols and Values by Jacques Duchesne-Guillemin. Page 1, Introduction. A living tradition. The Parsis number a little over 115,000 and live in Bombay and in a few towns and villages, mostly north of Bombay, although they are not strictly speaking a caste, since they do not belong to Hinduism. They are a well-defined community. They were among the first to open themselves up to European influence under the British rule, and this was one of the reasons for their prosperity. On the other hand, they remain a closed community, not only in that they never marry outside of it, but also in that clinging to the beliefs and customs of their ancestors as to so many distinctive marks, they do not seek to spread them. As their name shows, they descend from the Persian immigrants, in them as well in their 10,000 cousins who have remained in Iran. In the regions of Karaman and Yazd, the old religion lives on, which was that of the whole of Iran until the Arab conquest. They claim allegiance to the god Mazda or Mazd, to this prophet Zarathustra. The most conspicuous traits of their religion are the cult of fire and the towers of silence. For a long time under their Hindu prince, then under his Muslim successor, they were simple farmers until by the time of the arrival of the English with Wam, they were to become the best collaborators. They took to commerce. They have been called the Jews of India. Then it was that they began to settle down in Bombay, and Bombay began to grow. Previously, their centers had been successively Sanjan, Navsari, Surat, Bulsar, Ludhiana, Surat was still their main town when Anquetil visited them in the 18th century. From the middle of the 19th century onward, whatever was founded in India in the way of shipbuilding, railroads, iron mills, etc., was their work. They were distinguished for their beneficence and their education as well as their wealth, striving as they were to alleviate misery without distinction of race or religion, founding hospitals, orphanages, schools. They had once adopted from their Hindu environment a new language, Gujarati, and a new costume. Though they felt the attraction of astrology and mysticism, these could not prevail over their traditional religion, which was equally distant from fatalism and asceticism. They succeeded in adopting the English manners, the European costume, the education of women, and the abolition of infant marriage in their enterprises as well as in their charity. They were following the Western example. Several of them were knighted by the British Crown. There was one Parsi baronet, 2 Parsi members of Parliament. What caused the Parsis to excel in this way? An American geographer, Ellsworth Huntington of Yale, studying the general effect of race and environment on the development of civilization. Cities, the Parsis, as typical of a community, tried but fortified by natural selection, which allows only the fittest to survive. It had required some courage to escape Islam. Then, in the course of the exile in the mountains, the exodus to India in successive stages, up to an installation which was at first precarious. The less valiant among them had perished from the toils and hardships, diseases, and despair. Thus the small surviving band possessed latent energies, only waiting for an opportunity to blossom forth. They can, in this respect, be compared to the Pilgrims, those English Puritans who, fleeing their religious persecution, went out to found that was to become, in 2 centuries, the grandeur that is the United States of America in the economy, the politics, and the social status of the United States. Their descendants still occupy many of the best places. However, the question remains whether The rise of the Parsees, like that of the Puritans, had anything to do with the commandments of their religion. Here, under the signature of the contemporary Parsee, is a summary of the Mazdan doctrine. The universe is the creation of Ahura Mazda, the creator, but it has not come from nothing. The aim of the creation is the bliss and the welfare of man. The sequence of creations differs from that in the Bible. First, the sky was created with all the celestial bodies, then water, the earth, the vegetable kingdom, and all animal kingdom, and finally man. The duration of the creation from the beginning up to the renovation, Frasha Karate, is 12 millenniums. The whole creation is bound by the law of production and destruction. Ahura Mazda's might has two poles, one of which is the Spenta Manu, prospers and maintains everything, whereas the other, the Agra Manu, is the destructive force. Only the Sassanid period, AD 226 through 631, to the identification of Ahura Mazda, the creator, the Spenta Manu, his maintaining pole, definitively establish itself. It had already outlined itself in the Vidivit from then on. Angramanu, Anarmanu Araman acted as counterpart to Harmaz Darmaz. In this way, a certain dualism was formed, but dualism which did not, as a dualism stricto sensu would do, opposed to eternally coexistent deities. Only Haramazda is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, and eternal, whereas Anarmanu is limited, time, and power, and in knowledge. His destructive will to power will last up to man's resurrection and the renovation of the world. He will then be annihilated with his bad cohorts, and all evil will be extirpated. Man is composed of matter and spirit, viz., on the one hand, a body, on the other hand, a vital breath, a faculty of discernment, a conscience, the soul, and a fravashi. When the vital breath leaves the body, discernment and conscience perish. Only the soul and the Fravashi have a post-mortem existence. Man is born pure, not as taught in Christianity to follow by the original sin. To keep his soul from sin, discernment has been given him, a faculty which enables him to distinguish between good and evil and to choose from free will either the one or the other to lead him along the path of righteousness. A Fravashi comparable, if need be, to Plato's ideas is assigned to him. Not only has a man's soul a Fravashi, but so has the entire creation, animated or not. The duty of the Fravashi is to see the prosperity and just growth of the world and to accompany man rightly in his terrestrial life. Life after death unfolds itself in the Avestan conception in heaven and hell, and in the intermediate domain, the decision belongs to Yazata, Zamir, Sarosh, and Rashna, who give their verdict on human deeds. These deeds are the outcomes of free will. The actions of children not yet received in the religious community are the entire responsibility of the parents. Those of the persons under 15 are half their own, half their parents' responsibility. The Parsees has no concept of fatalism any more than that original sin. Parseeism teaches that we must strive with all our might to obtain the promised bliss and escape the threatening woe, and the end of the resurrection of man will take place, which will efface all distinction between good and evil, the latter's annihilation, and will set up an existence in human form and family groups exempt from all sin and source of eternal bliss. All increase of mankind will be ruled out, whence it appears that the doctrine of rebirth and metapsychosis are foreign to Parseeism. It will be noted that the author of the defining his religion has taken care to oppose Christianity, original sin, to Islam, fatalism, and Hinduism, transmigration. He includes with a brief ethics. The soul's sole advocate at the celestial judgment after death is good deeds which he has performed on earth. He should, therefore, live a righteous life here below. The whole moral doctrine of Zoroastrianism can be summarized in three notions: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. They encompass all their religion teaches in the way of virtues: order, purity, truth, and righteousness, obedience, humility, compassion, and gratitude, love of parents, family, and compatriots, good treatment of the subordinates, care for useful animals, as well as acts of zeal, chastity, self-confidence,